This is the cruiser Ukraina, the largest ship of the Ukrainian fleet. Yes, it is smaller than the Titanic, shorter by 83 meters, but it is the twin brother of the Moskva cruiser. He is even better. First, he is younger, he is not at the bottom of the Black Sea, and no one sent him anywhere. The only problem is that he hasn't been to any of the seas at all. Finally, we are here. They wanted to get there for a long time. Cruiser Ukraina is a legendary Ukrainian ship. Tell us about him. Have you been watching over him for a long time? Unfortunately, he has never been to sea, but his story is legendary.
In 2001, there was a team here already on training. Then a year and a half later it left, and the ship has been parked here for 25 years, think.
Does the ship work in theory? Tomorrow they will say that they give money and that's it. Can it go out to sea, just sail, shoot, or does it no longer function?
Well, it needs to be repaired. It takes time to repair and adjust it, and for it to enter the sea. And yes, while it is standing, we look after it.
At the time, I understand that it was one of the best ships in general.
South, it was the most powerful ship we had in Ukraine.
The cruiser Ukraina is one of the 4 children of Project 1164 Atlant. It also included the sunken cruiser Moskva, the active flagship of Russia in the Pacific Fleet, Variag, and the cruiser of the Northern Fleet of the Russian Federation, Marshal Ustinov. All of them were built in Mykolaiv. The project started in 1972. The Union understood that their naval forces were completely inferior to the US, and something had to be done about it. These ships were created for the ocean, a possible large-scale confrontation with the Americans, but definitely not for the Black Sea. How true is it that this ship is no longer for defense, and this ship is more for attack? I heard this version.
Well, they said then that it is a killer ship. He could approach any city and attack from the sea in such a way that nothing would remain of the city itself.
People who see this ship say, well, it is already old, Rusty. You said that it is not rust.
No, it's not rust. There is a little bit of rust on the ship, but in hard-to-reach places, underwater. Here, the rust is only along the waterline, where the water stops with the hull and washes over here. You know, where the water was flowing. Divers were under the bottom. There are no shells, and the hull is fine. Well, there are no funds for its maintenance, for paint, for everything.
How much paint is needed to paint this whole ship? I heard that there was almost a ton for Moskva, they said.
A ton is not enough here. Of course, in order to paint the whole ship only from the outside, it is necessary. Well, I will tell you now. Well, at least 3 tons.
Wow, the Soviet Union collapsed. How much was this ship ready for? I heard 70% readiness.
No, well, let's tell the truth, about 90%.
Was it 90% ready then? Wow.
90 to 92%, yes.
Okay, Ukraine has completed another 5%. It's now 95%. What have we completed in all this time?
This is an inspection of all posts, installations, all electrical connection devices, mechanisms, machines.
It was 95% ready, but 5% was missing. What is it?
Well, these are running tests. This is a check of engines, a check of all tests, a check of all.
The Mykolaiv shipyard is, unfortunately, another story of how to break and steal something that worked. 100 years ago, destroyers, submarines, and cruisers were built here, and now there is no life here. In 1999, the Moskva cruiser was repaired in Mykolaiv. For the next 10 years, ships were built for Norway, Spain, France, and Greece. And after 2009, the plant did not create a single new ship. 3 years ago, the company was declared bankrupt.
52 orders were built for the Greeks.
Why did this one freeze?
There the dollar grew and the prices did not agree.
And how profitable was it, as you said, that you sold ships there? And to Greece, to Norway? That was a good income at that time?
When these refrigerators were being built, it got to the point that the dollar started to rise, and he wanted to give the old price. Well, the argument started, they stopped. That's why this 50-second order got stuck. When we built the first one, a refrigerator, it cost $12.5 million. He sold it 6 months later for 24. And so he raised it. He had such a profit on us that the court is still going on. How much do we owe him? 50 million. Or how much?
But if they give us money, I don't know, of course, maybe we don't need a cruiser. In general, do we have the specialists and capabilities to build one? Or has this period already passed?
I think I passed. All the boys are currently working abroad.
The cruiser also has its own small railway. What is it for? In general, one can even logically guess. There are many rockets here. They are heavy, and along these rails they move to their destination. This is where the rocket itself is launched.
The lid opens here, the rockets are loaded here, and then they do their work.
What were these rockets called?
Wasp. Next is the helipad. The helicopter lands and is dragged there into the hangar. The blades are folded.
And what is he delaying?
There is a special winch.
And what is the height of the ship?
About 12 floors.
Wow. And what is the minimum depth needed so that it can pass through water?
9 to 10 meters.
Tell me about this gun. She looks so massive.
Caliber 130. Double barrel, 90 rounds per minute. Very powerful. I was once at the ship's tests when we were doing something in this hatch, in this room. When I climbed here, when the cannon started firing, I was glued to the wall. And I hung there until she glued to the wall. And I hung there until she had climbed out on foot. I would have been swept away there.
Do you still have any shells for it?
The guns are still there, but they're for training purposes only.
The anchor chain surprised me because its size is also, I don't know how many tons it weighs.
Each chain weighs 5 tons, somewhere 5 to 6 tons. And this ship left from these slipways.
So this ship just turned around here a bit, and that's it?
Yes, he turned around here when there were many ships. Then he stood like this, stern to the pier.
On the ship, there's a water-based protection system. It runs throughout the cruiser. Water is pumped under pressure by special pumps, and when the ship senses danger, it essentially gets wrapped in a water veil. For enemies, other ships, or aircraft, it becomes much harder to see. Like everything is covered in fog. What was the cruiser Moskva doing? This is actually the twin brother of the ship. What was it doing in the Black Sea? You understand, this was not exactly his area of responsibility.
There were S-300 missiles and basalt long-range installations, so shoot at ours.
The Russians say that it is impossible to penetrate such a ship with Neptune. Here is your opinion as a professional. Is it possible or not?
So they were good Neptunes. I'll show you where they hit. I'll show you. And here is the installation of torpedo tubes.
How is a torpedo launched? What is the principle? How hard is it? We know that launching a nuclear missile is very difficult. There are many agreements. Torpedo is much easier?
It turns like this by 90 degrees. The side opens. It is pushed out of this pipe. A depth of 1 to 2 meters is set. The range and target are set.
You have torpedoes, as they say, in such cellophane.
They are still preserved, new, not yet used. Now we are at an electrical substation. Here, in this room, the Neptune rocket hit, which caused the ship to sink. The current has ended. Everything has started to burn here, short-circuiting. He has no equal in a naval battle. The doors must be closed tightly. They didn't work, didn't close, and water began to flow into one room, the second, the third. Upstairs, in our dining room, there are dining teams. There is even more room there. Here, every room is closed separately, like in a submarine. Also, every corridor, every room is hermetically sealed. If this room was closed automatically, it would collect water, and that's all. But there would be no current on the ship. There was a short circuit, and that's all. It was no longer possible to close the door or anything.
Can you show me the zones where the Moskva flew to so that I can visually understand?
It's right here and right here.
The camera does not fully convey the scale of this ship, but when you go inside, you understand how easily you can get lost here. 1,600 different premises. Many people who come here for the first time simply get lost here because there are so many floors. It's like a labyrinth so big.
No, I'm checking and ordering the duty officer. All right, you count how many people got on the ship, and then tell me how many are still inside. There were journalists who had to be searched for over an hour. One journalist was at the bow of the ship, near the cubby, and there, it's a massive maze. Now, we are in the premises of the medical ward. Well, in fact, in simple words, this is what a hospital is like.
Well, in fact, in simple words, this is what a hospital is like. Actually, you could easily have an operation here on the flight. I heard you even had a dentist here?
Yes, the dentist is there on the main deck. There are cubicles for patients. This is where the control of all machines and engines went. This is where the control and electricity, all the devices that are shown here throughout the ship.
You have a lot of devices, it seems to me, like how nuclear missiles are launched. The same number of buttons.
No, this is engine control.
I'll be honest, we're a little far from the ships. We're used to having some kind of rudder there, Captain. Is there such a thing here?
No, this is the helm. This is the helm. 1, 2, 3.
And how many people should manage all this? There are hundreds of sensors.
Well, here there is a team of mechanics, electricians, and there must be at least dozens, 10 to 12 people on duty.
This is one of the ship control areas. For example, this is where the engines are controlled. Then we can choose our course. Then here is simply a huge number of instruments. These are actually the ancestors of modern computers. These are also different elements for capturing the target, but that's not what surprised me the most. We walk a little further, and here we see simply thousands of kilometers of cable. It is all over the ship. There is a lot of it here. It is just tons of material.
Here in this room sat all the commanders, missilemen, anti-aircraft gunners, machine gunners.
Just under 40 years ago, this was cutting-edge equipment. Since then, technology has come a long way. Just think about the technology your parents used and what is available now. Ships have also changed. Compare Ukraine with the most modern aircraft carrier of the United States, Geraldford. It was he who was sent to the shores of Israel. Visually, it looks really cool. Inside is also comfortable and cozy. The equipment is clearly not from the Cold War period. I welcome you to an ordinary cabin. Here we have a window that opens, then a small room. There is a sink. There is a closet. There is such a workplace. There is some kind of safe. And the most interesting thing, one of the presidents of Ukraine is well remembered here. Another photo of Kuchma remains in place. Then in 1999, Kuchma got a little confused and called the cruiser Aurora.
I want to sincerely congratulate you on a major event of state importance. The raising of the state flag on the Aurora missile cruiser.
I organized a celebration and gave the command to complete the future flagship. Everything stopped at 95% readiness. Then the cruiser became a puzzle for subsequent presidents. Yushchenko did not make loud statements, and the cruiser just stood there. Yanukovych really wanted to sell it to Russia. Poroshenko removed part of the armament and gave the order to sell the ship as scrap. And Zelensky also agreed to sell it to someone and instead build 4 corvettes. But the cruiser is still an overwhelming task. Presidents make decisions, leave, new ones come, but the burden under the name Ukraina remains. Why didn't it work out in Kutma? They really gave finance then. They wanted to build it. Why did everything stop?
Well, the presidents changed. They probably decided that it would not be enough to maintain it. That's why everything stopped to maintain it.
Do you remember at the beginning of the video I mentioned that Ukraina is a large cruiser, but it does not reach the size of Titanic? So this is the Chinese aircraft carrier Liaoning, just a giant 35 meters longer than the legendary Titanic. Why am I telling you about him? Because he is from Ukraine. In 1985, the Variag aircraft carrier began to be built in Mykolaiv and was almost 70% ready. Later, they realized they will not be able to pull financially any further, and they have to sell. Tender in 1998. The only requirement, apart from the price, the ship cannot be used for military purposes. For $20 million, he had to go here. Macau is an administrative region of China. If you think that the biggest casino is in Las Vegas or Monte Carlo, I will disappoint you. It is right here. By the way, it was built by this man, Sheldon Adelson, an American businessman whose mother emigrated from Ukraine. So the aircraft carrier Variag was supposed to be converted into a casino on the water, but something went wrong. The problems began in 2000 when a tug came to Ukraine for an aircraft carrier and got stuck in the Black Sea for 16 months. Officially, Turkey did not want to release it through the Bosphorus and Dardanelles because it did not have its own engines and it was dangerous. The unofficial version is that the states put pressure on the Turks because they understood that China wants to steal the technologies of the Union and build its own military facility. The funniest thing is that the tugboats and the aircraft carrier could not simply take off and stop on the water, so they were forced to circle the Black Sea at minimum speed for 16 months. The Turks finally agreed, and the very next day the aircraft carrier got caught in a 5-ball storm, the tug cable broke, and the Variag drifted in the sea for 2 days. 1 sailor died. Only in 2002, Variag reached the shores of China. The journey took 627 days. Then the aircraft carrier disappeared somewhere. Think you're lost among the other casinos on the water in Macau? No, in 2011, China presented its first ever aircraft carrier called the Liaoning. Taiwan has accused Beijing of cheating and stealing technology. And what did Ukraine do? Blame China and raised an international scandal? Almost. She just kept silent. Our employees have been going to China for years to consult and build and were involved in the project in every way. Ukraine was well aware of China's plans and simply went to the meeting. I also heard information that the Chinese also came. Some delegations watched him. How true is this? So tell me.
There were delegations, yes. Well, why didn't we agree? I don't know. Maybe someone didn't give permission to sell it.
You don't know the sums that appeared?
Somewhere back then it was 600 to 800 million.
If you want to destroy a small country, give it a cruiser. Winston Churchill. Have you ever heard this phrase? If not, the context is still understood. Cruisers are very expensive. And how can you disagree with Churchill? He had cruisers, and he definitely knew the expendable part. But this phrase is an example of Russian propaganda. If you dig deeper, it is actually found only on Russian sites, and with a sneer about Ukraine. Search in the original language, and it does not smell like Churchill. The expression is found in one Russian book and on the same dubious websites. But are cruisers really that expensive? Let's count. How many liters do you need? Start the engine? Because I know a helicopter, when the engine starts, the blades spin 70 liters. How many here?
There are 5 tons here. There are tanks of 40 to 60 tons each.
I read various information on the internet. Someone said that $600,000 are needed per year just to maintain the ship. What is the actual amount needed?
$600,000? Yes, approximately so.
Yezhel, Minister of Defense of Ukraine. Remember this face. The heyday of his career fell during Yanukovych's time. He was even an advisor to the president. In 2010, Russia wanted to buy the cruiser. Medvedev even made a statement that the ship will be completed in Russia and it will complement their fleet. Exact sums were not named. In 2011, Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Yezhel, met with his Russian counterpart. The latter said that he was waiting for an acceptable offer. Yezhel expressed confidence that the future occupiers would buy the ship. The Russian Minister of Defense either jokingly or seriously added, "They are ready to take the cruiser, but in vain." Why should Yezhel be remembered? Because he is the one who openly worked for the enemy. For example, during his time, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine transferred 2 Tu-95s MS heavy bombers to a private company, which caused losses of 24 million Ukrainian hryvnias. Yezhel is still wanted by the SBU, and according to the latest information, he is hiding in the territory of Belarus. According to experts, Yezhel destroyed the structure of the armed forces of Ukraine, which at that time were almost ready to use the NATO model. Despite the name on board, this cruiser is no longer Ukraina. Its first name was Komsomolets, very original, then Fleet Admiral Lobov in honor of a person who had nothing to do with Ukraine. Only after that did this modern name Ukraine appear, but it was like that until 2010. There were rumors that this ship was to be sold to the Russians, and the Verkhovna Rada voted to actually take its name, and since then, it is only Hull number 2011. The cruiser Moskva also came to you here.
Yes.
It is here for the first time built, and I understand that you repaired it. Did you catch this repair? What was the general condition of the cruiser Moskva?
He didn't stay with us for long. We repaired it, but they never paid us for the work.
You just repaired it, and then it left?
Yes, yes.
You can easily get lost on this cruiser. There are 1,600 rooms in only this corridor, imagine. Its length is as much as 150 meters. It actually runs through the entire cruiser. This is the room where the dishes were washed. Please note, the dishwasher, the year is a little faded, but it is clear that it is 1989. She is older than me, 115 kilograms. I think that my generation has definitely not seen such devices. This is berthing. In simple words, premises where sailors lived. 18 people lived on such a small area. Everyone has their own bed and a small closet. There is always a duty schedule and dozens of different rooms on the wall. Photo lab, library, bakery, even shoe repair. The phone no longer works. Under it is an interesting device for flashlights. This is actually an antediluvian power bank. But there was a place on the ship to which everyone knew the way. And of course, there were long queues. So that you understand the level of comfort on this ship. Come here. Here we have, please note, a swimming pool where you could refresh yourself. Well, before that, of course, go to the sauna. In general, the sauna is still in absolutely normal condition. You can take a steam, relax, and continue your business. This was a military object. Did this sauna work for at least a day?
Of course.
Seriously?
The team was there and worked.
Normally.
I was there myself.
There's even an elevator here for your convenience for a second. As many as 6 floors. In order for you to understand the height of this ship, it is probably the best perspective. I am standing on its deck, and this is one of them, its lowest points. There are a lot of spans, floors, and everything really looks very large. The carpet on the wall indicates that the commander's cabin is well outdated, but at that time it had everything for a comfortable life. You could order something tasty with a button. You won't have to wait long because everything is thought out and the buffet is just a few steps away. But you are the commander, you can afford food in the room. It was like that before. For years, the cruiser is a story of losses. Even to maintain it in this condition every year requires around $1 million. At some point, money stopped being given and debts only accumulated. What do you think of the conditional China, which used to buy aircraft carriers from us and so on? Is this ship interesting in principle? Has technology already advanced so far that, in principle, there is nothing for them to take?
If you simply dismantle it, that's $500 million, at the very least.
You can talk about Ukrainian corruption in each of our videos, but there is a mega strange story, as if based on the notes of Pablo Escobar. Only Medellin is changed to Mykolaiv, and the scale is much more modest. In 2016, the SBU detained Mykola Romanchuk. He is a hero of Ukraine. At one time, he was the head of the Mykolaiv Regional State Administration and one of the directors of the local ocean plant. They were allegedly caught for a bribe of $90,000. Romanchuk was framed or not, but the story is really interesting. These are his 4 estates. They are connected by underground tunnels. SBU employees found several $100,000, gold bars, awards from the time of Nazi Germany, antiques, ancient icons, and a lot of jewelry. A few days after the search, Romanchuk was taken away by an ambulance. Unexpectedly, right? The trials dragged on for several years, and in 2021, he was fully acquitted. Ironically, this year, Romanchuk's estate was robbed by unknown persons. Restaurant, the most elite place on the ship. Here they received presidents, watched movies, and tasted the most delicious dishes.
As the commander ordered, so it will be. South, and the menu was. There was fish. They used to go on ships as a business trip. Then in the nose, there was a barrel with herring and fish. Whoever wanted ate it.
You still have a piano here. Did you invite musicians?
Or maybe there were musicians on the ship.
Is it working?
Well, there were evenings. What was there to do? Maybe they sang something.
It still works. Also, Ukraina. So that you understand, even the chairs here are unusual. There is a hook under them where you can fasten your chair. There is a thing here that can be used to lengthen the chain. The hook goes in, you pull, and your chair basically has nowhere to go. Is it not offensive to you that this ship with which you work for so long, which you support, that it never sailed at all?
It's a pity. It's a pity. Yes, of course. How many years has it been standing so that it does not work out and is standing? And for what? How much money is lost, right? And no matter how much we serviced him, no one was responsible for anyone, did not pay, nothing. They worked here for 2 or 3 days, spent the night here. So we have to get off the ship there. On the 20th, he has to do everything on the 20th. The guys are painting the hull. They don't have time to raise the waterline. The ship has been lowered. It will leave tomorrow. And how will the ship go without a waterline? This is red paint from below, then a white waterline and gray paint, the freeboard. What shall I do? Any. The boys throw 2 barrels, knock 2 planks, put a man on these barrels. One swims in the water with a brush in his teeth. One paints gray. One paints white. One paints... What are you guys doing? The head of the workshop says, Ihori Matveyovich, all the best forces are abandoned. Put the water line in the water. He smiled so much, he said, you will pour it for the boys so that they don't freeze. The captain of the ship, the commander of the ship could sit here. The navigator could sit there. The command was sent from here. There was already evidence of such things. For example, there was low, medium, full speed. And there they had already worked on the engines, and the engines were working there. Harrow compass. Here it is on the right. On the port side, there are 2 compasses. Well, it is there on that side and on the other side. The roll, the ship's deferent, TK, such binoculars of 50x size. You can see that there was an attack on ours.
Is that where the shell hit, right? And this ship, it can withstand storms of what level? I think he was also prepared for this?
It seems to me that he can withstand 9 points. Well, if the height here is up to this place, how to look at 9 floors? The portholes were all closed, water could not enter. The doors all closed too, like on this one, for example, yes. Everything was rubberized, tested under high pressure, closed tightly, squeezed in too. Water did not get in at all. Water could not get through the portholes either.
These are Basalt 500 missiles. They fly at a distance of 550 kilometers. This is a Soviet-made rocket. Supersonic one weighs 5 tons and they can carry a nuclear charge. But was it possible to remake the ship to suit ourselves, take away the weapons that only Russia has, and install our own? Some believe it is possible, but this process will take about 10 years. And this is with stable funding, which has long been forgotten in Ukraine.
Someone decided that it could not be kept. Then it was clearly possible to change everything and put your own missiles, your own installations, all the equipment, even though Russia supplied it. It was possible to do everything, and it was possible to bet.
In what year did you see this ship in person for the first time?
He was still standing on the slipway for sure.
In fact, since the very birth of the ship, you have already seen it, been near it.
Of course, if he was in 1985, he started construction on the slipway, and I came in 1976.
And what will happen to this ship? What is your opinion? He will never see the sea.
But no one wants him to see the sea. No one wants war. We'll make it a peaceful ship, peaceful hotel, museum. Well, just remove everything from here, and it is necessary to arrange it in such a way as to please. It needs to be heated. How many regulars are needed for it? That's how many premises. Maintaining a museum is not only, it does not justify itself in any way. If the museum is a museum, how many people must be kept in order to maintain it so that it pays for itself? So, this museum is just like that. Money is not thrown away. We need to remove this equipment, everything, pick everything up. Well, as a hotel, it fits. There is so much space.
There are also many options for what to do with the cruiser. The Chinese are the most creative in this regard. At one time, they bought the aircraft carrier Kyiv, also built in Mykolaiv, for pennies. First, it was turned into a theme park, actually a huge museum, visited by up to 40,000 people every week. And in 2011, part of the cruiser was converted into a luxury hotel. Most dishes of Ukrainian cuisine are served in the restaurant, the most original place to live, so that later you can tell your friends that you spent the night on a real military cruiser.